everybody. Welcome back to Rate Shore Radio, episode 634, coming to you on Wednesday, November 19th. As always, you can follow us on social media at Rant of Troy. Email us, rantoftroyfans.com, and our phone number, 818-643-7227. Sucker Woods Bruin Show. We're going to preview USC and Oregon here on this game, on this episode. As always, it's a big one. I'm your host, Mike Garcia, joined along with my co-host here in the Rant of Troy studio, powered by Fansided, Elise Dertola.
Hello, everybody.
Hello! It's a big one. It's the biggin, as the Brits would say.
It's huge. It's effectively a college football playoff play-in game.
Dare I say SC is already in the playoff?
Dare you say?
No, I mean, like,
this is part of the playoff?
Yes. Is it not?
It's a play-in game. No,
like, what I mean is, like...
if we ignore the fact that UCLA ends the season, and I am increasingly uncomfortable.
Included.
I'm increasingly uncomfortable. Well, that's fair. Yeah, SC is
in the
elimination.
playoffs.
USC is in single elimination.
Yes.
For the playoff. Yes.
Yeah. The only way that they're not already in the playoff in that sense is if they go to the Big Ten championship game, and maybe that changes things there. But no, they are. It's single elimination. If you want to win a national title, then you cannot lose the rest of the season, right? That's just how it is.
Yeah.
They're in the playoff. So we're going to preview the game 12:30 on CBS. It's a big one. Let's just get into the news straight away. All right. The college football rankings came out. They came out on Tuesday, as they always do. The Trojans are up to number 15, 1-5. This week's opponent, the Oregon Ducks, at number 7. Notre Dame at number 9. Michigan, who USC beat, is at 18. And Illinois, who USC lost to, of course, is at number 21. Iowa falls out. Iowa was 21 last week. The rankings don't matter right now because win and you're in, lose and you're out. It's that simple. But number 15 is, I think that just further makes the case that SC is win and you're in for the rest of the season.
Well, I think that the fact that USC is 15th, that's if USC wasn't 15th, it would be less of a sure thing that it's win and you're in. But
yes,
being positioned at that point with this matchup coming up, it's very clear that the committee is very open to putting USC in if USC earns it. Mm-hmm. So a win over Oregon probably propels them into the top 10. And then...
I would imagine beating Oregon might have a swap of ranks.
Or close to it, yeah.
Probably not.
The problem is they're going to have to stay behind Notre Dame.
They're going to have to stay behind Notre Dame. But Notre Dame goes to 7. SC is up to 9. Oregon drops to 15. That's basically what would happen. But of course, SC's got to do that. And to do that, they've got to get players back that they need from injury. Wayman Jordan could be one of those guys. He's practicing. Lincoln Riley doesn't expect him to play against Oregon. But, Alicia, is that some gamesmanship?
I think the gamesmanship would have been if they didn't say anything and left it, confused about whether or not Wayman Jordan was going to be available for this game. The fact that he's announcing, that he's saying outright that he's not going to be available, makes me even question whether he's going to be available for the UCLA game.
Sure.
That's Riley doesn't seem to be the kind of person who comments on players unless they are going to be out for the foreseeable future. So I don't know. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but I would love to see Wayman Jordan play, but we won't see him this weekend, and then it's on to UCLA.
Yeah, I stand by my prediction from the other day. No matter what, Wayman Jordan will be suited and practicing before the game in warm-ups. I stand by that. If nothing else, as some gamesmanship, Yeah, that's sort of where I am. The other big injuries, of course, Elijah Page, USC's left tackle, Kamari Ramsey, and Bishop Fitzgerald, a couple of safeties. They were dressed for practice, but we don't have updates on their status. Ryan Karchi from the LA Times said, I would, for what it's worth, anticipate that Kamari Ramsey is closer to returning than Bishop Fitzgerald, but again, for whatever that's worth.
Yeah, and I don't know what he's basing that on, so it's hard to say. But suffice it to say that if USC is missing Bishop Fitzgerald, it gets really tricky for USC secondary. If USC is missing Bishop Fitzgerald and Kamari Ramsey, it gets very, very tricky for USC secondary. And I think it comes down to we should expect to see Kennedy Urlacher get a lot of run this week, no matter what. And then I guess the question is, Alex Graham played a few snaps last week, and maybe he's and able to play. So USC is going to have to dig deep into that depth, but we will find out how deep they're going to there, because if Fitzgerald is gone, I think it's pretty simple to just have Christian Pierce and Kennedy Urlacher back there. I wouldn't anticipate them running with a safety pairing of Kamari Ramsey and Christian Pierce, although that would be really fun, personally, but I just wouldn't anticipate it. So we'll see. I mean, there's a lot of intrigue with the secondary right now. A lot of uncertainty while we don't know for sure that either of those players are going to play.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think that it would be interesting to see different combinations that you could have at safety. Ideally, you'd love to have those guys back, obviously, especially when, those are three of the first guys on the team sheet, right? Like, Elijah Page is your left tackle. Kamari Ramsey, we've talked about before, probably the first guy that you're making a starter on defense. And then Bishop Fitzgerald has sort of been the heart of this defense production-wise, because he has so many interceptions, so many timely interceptions. So SC will hope that they can get those guys back. We'll see. I think it is a good sign, like you mentioned, that guys like Kennedy Urlacher had success last week against Iowa. That gives you some hope, right? Like it doesn't feel like a catastrophe, in part because they beat Iowa, but also remember, Iowa's offense, not Oregon's. Not Oregon's in the sliders. So either way, you will have to pick your poison with whatever you got for the Trojans defensively. And of course, you can go over to Underdog Fantasy and pick your dudes there, because football season in the thick of it, especially here in November, and making picks at Underdog is so easy. It's my daily fantasy app that I go to all the time. Can play with as little as $1, win up to 5,000 times my money. It's all about using your ball knowledge to pick whether you think a player will go higher or lower than their stat projections, mix and match with different players on different teams, even different sports. This week, I am going over to Underdog Fantasy, and I'm looking at Brian Jackson. He's got higher or lower 0.5 rush plus receiving touchdowns. I am going to go higher. I'm feeling it. He had 2 touchdowns against Iowa. He's sort of the goal line back for the Trojans. That's where I'm going there. And then King Miller, higher or lower, 74.5 rushing yards. I will go higher as well. So join me over on Underdog. You can make your picks. Download the app today. Sign up with promo code Reign of Troy to score $100 in bonus entries when you play your first $5. That's promo code Reign of Troy. Underdog. Make picks, win money, must be 18 plus, 19 plus in Alabama, Nebraska, 19 plus in Colorado for some games, 21 plus in Arizona, Massachusetts, and Virginia, and present in the state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. See assets.underdogfantasy.com/web/play and get terms _DFS_.html for details. Offer not valid in Maryland, Michigan, New Jersey, New York, Ohio, and Pennsylvania. Concerned with your play, call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit ncpgambling.org. In New York, call the 24/7 HOPEline at 1-877-8-HOPENY or text HOPENY, which is 467-369. Alicia, it's time to preview USC and Oregon. Trojans playing for the first time since 2023 when SC went up to Oregon with Caleb Williams. Lost 36-27. They were down big, but they fought. They clawed. Didn't get a 2-point conversion in the last couple minutes. Basically ended the game. Scoreline doesn't look terrible, given how that team played and given how good that Oregon team was. But also, it's not like they were really in it, especially early. They had some horrific defensive breakdowns early in that game. But this is an Oregon team coached by Dan Lanning in year number 4. He's 44-7 for the Ducks. He wins big games. He only loses big games because that's what he does. As always, you look at where this team ranks: 7th in the college football playoff, 6th in college football playoff ranking, 6th in the AP, 5th in the coaches poll. FEI says 3rd. Jeff Sagarin also says 3rd in the country. So this is a team we've talked about before where Ohio State and Indiana, kind of the only two infallible teams in college football right now as it stands. Everybody else beyond that is pick your poison of who you think is best. Some people will say Oregon, some will say Notre Dame, some will say Georgia, some will say A&M, some will say Texas Tech, right? There's a bunch of teams in that mix. Oregon might be the best of the bunch. They are, according to FEI, right? Like, they're right there. Alicia, this is obviously a big opponent. It's one that we circled on the schedule before the season. It's one when we talked about the chalk season the SC could go on, whether it be 9-3 or whatever it was. Sort of the losses that you kind of circled in were Notre Dame and Oregon, because they were two teams who, one of them went to the national championship game last year in Notre Dame. The other one, Oregon, was the number 1 seed in the playoff last year, and SC was getting both of them on the road. SC went to Notre Dame last month and lost. Here they are against Oregon with an 8-2 record, bowl eligibility way back in the rearview mirror. This is the team that essentially, like we talked about, sort of are already in the playoff, given that like they have to win on a weekly basis here. General vibes going in?
I mean, USC is in a better position than I expected them to be going into this game, but USC has also not given me the indications that I would need to feel confident going into this game.
Sure.
I think that this doesn't feel like a good matchup for USC, to be quite honest. And Oregon's not a good matchup for anybody because they've got a good offense and a really good defense, and so no one's going to feel really great going up against them. But especially a team like USC that is so imbalanced, it's, if their defense was just a little bit worse, I could talk myself into the idea of a shootout.
Sure. And
right now I can't do that. So the vibes aren't. I think where I'll go is that I think I am hopeful of USC being able to more or less replicate the flow of the Notre Dame game, wherein they're in that game. They're not necessarily going to win that game, but it doesn't look like they're getting like they're totally outclassed. Is sort of what I'm looking for from USC. I think a win is a step too far,
yeah.
But that doesn't mean that USC can't show us something that is meaningful.
Yeah, this has been the sort of knock on SC road performances, right? Is that they can't finish the games and all that stuff, but it's never been that they've been outclassed. SC has been in the mix for all of those games. Games that they should have won, games that they could have won, any of those things that you want to put in there. Notre Dame game was not a game that they should have won, but could have won. Maryland last year was a should have won. You know what I mean? Like, there's a wide range, but there's a lot of similarities to games that go down to one play.
You can argue Illinois was a game they should have won.
Yeah, especially when they take the lead at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. SC basically needs a little oomph, and with that oomph, we got a super chat from Fighting On MC that says, just because, hashtag fight on.
Cheers.
Cheers indeed. Romerty says, time to step up and get a major W. So yeah, the Rotbots are feeling it. We appreciate you guys. I appreciate you Fighting On MC as always. And let's get into previewing The Oregon offense, led by Dante Moore, UCLA transfer. His first season as a starter with the Ducks, he's been pretty good. Fourth nationally in passer rating. He trails only Julian Sayin, Fernando Mendoza, and CJ Carr in passer rating. His passer rating is a $168.6, 72.8% completion percentage. That's standard for a really good quarterback in college football these days, and he's just efficient. 21 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. I really like what he's done. Oregon has not asked him to do a lot. They are not asking him to go out and be their Dennis Dixon. They are not going out and, putting everything in his hands. And I think that just makes him sort of a perfect guy to sort of lead this offense, because he's very good and capable, but he doesn't have to be a superstar on a weekly basis. He has had some subpar performances. Wisconsin a few weeks ago is a notable one, but he led a game-winning drive against Iowa in the sleet after going like a long time without completing a pass, and then he throws probably the best pass he's ever thrown in his life to set up the game-winning field goal in that game. He was sensational last week against Minnesota, completed 90% of his passes and threw for 306 yards. Plus, he's not a high-capacity runner. He's not Mark Gronowski from Iowa, who is going to run for a rushing touchdown every single game or any of those things. But he's capable. He can pick his spots. And it's helpful that he's got a running game behind him that is real damn good. Dare I say, this is the best running game USC will have faced all season long, especially on a per-rush basis. And I think that's scary, given that Notre Dame...
Given that USC has played Notre Dame.
Yes.
Yeah.
Notre Dame absolutely torched the Trojans for 300 rushing yards. You look at the Ducks on the ground, number 1 in success rate on run plays, number 2 in yards per carry, number 2 in 20-plus yard runs, number 3 in 30-plus yard runs. They're successful, they're explosives, they do it all. They have a three-headed backfield of Noah Whittington, Jordan Davison, and De'Aaron Hill, winner of the 2027 Heisman Trophy in our online dynasty.
Yeah.
Big ups to our friend Matt and Eugene for that one. Each of them have a run longer than 66 yards this season. The crazy part is, not only do they each have a run longer than 66 yards, none of them have a run longer than 68 yards. 66, 67, 68. Those three guys. These are basically the triplets. They are the same dude. They are all explosive. They all run at a high clip. They rank first, second, and third in the Big Ten in yards per carry. First, second, and fourth. Number 3 on that list, King Miller. So, these dudes run at a super high clip. They all do the same thing. They're all very productive. This is not the backfield that we have seen against more so against Notre Dame, which has, the two-headed backfield. But, it's not Nebraska, where it's Emmett Sanders, and that's all you're going to get. This is 3 dudes who are just going to give you everything, time in and time out there.
Yeah, and that's the scary part is this is why in College Football 26, I love having a 3 deep at running back, because you can throw anyone out there. If somebody's having a bad day, if somebody's getting injured, somebody's getting worn and torn, you can always turn to another guy. And being able to shuttle in fresh running backs, especially in a game like this, it's going to be really, really advantageous for Oregon to be able to basically swap those guys in and out and not really experience a significant dip in terms of production. It's a luxury that USC doesn't have right now because of all the injuries, and that's really, I think, the pain of the injuries for USC is if USC had Waymo, Eli Sanders, and King Miller, we'd be talking about those 3 potentially in the same way we talk about the Oregon's 3, but where USC basically is, if King Miller's not at, you're done. But for Oregon, if Noah Whittington, for any reason, is just not at the races, they don't really have to worry about that as far as their running game goes. And going up against the USC defense that is particularly vulnerable against the run, that could end up being the story of the game. Also, shout out to Benet in the chat for his quack, because I may have been accused of never acknowledging my dear Oregon friend whenever he drops into our chat.
There you go. Quack indeed. We always love.
You're muted, Michael.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, there we go. Quack indeed. We always love people popping in. Alicia, let's talk about the case for SC on defense here going up against Oregon's offense. I put together some bullet points. Tell me where I'm wrong. Tell me where I'm right. Give a rebuttal, whatever. This is the case for USC to win this game on defense. Take that for what it's worth, right? This is a defense from SC that's far from perfect, but they've answered the bell time and time again the last month or so, especially in the second half. They've already allowed 3 second-half touchdowns since the Illinois game, the game in which they had no defense at all. They looked like a sieve completely in that game. Against Notre Dame, they did hold C.J. Carr in check through the air all game long, held him to a season-low passer rating of 110.4. It's a big reason why SC got stops in that game, despite giving up 300 yards on the ground. They're going to give up yards in this game, but I think if they can find a way to limit Dante Moore, hope that you get the Dante Moore that played in the sleet against Iowa, the Dante Moore that played against Wisconsin, who was not great in that game. If you can limit him and you can eliminate the explosive home run runs on the ground, the touchdowns, the long gains, I think you can get stops like SC got in the second half against Notre Dame and give the offense time to win the game. And I think the other thing is you look at what SC has done in these last 4 wins. Michigan, Northwestern, Nebraska, Iowa, all 4 of those teams, their running backs got theirs. Each one of those teams had their running backs averaging over 5 yards a carry, and SC still won the game, in part because they sort of held the passing offenses of those teams in check. They allowed those teams to get off schedule. They won third down battles in the second half. They still got stops despite giving up the yards. And I think that, that should give you some optimism that even if the run game is getting gashed, even if it is a repeat of the Notre Dame game, SC has still had a chance to win that game in the second half. The issue here is if you give up long touchdowns and you don't create any sort of turnovers to offset those, that's the danger zone. That's the death sentence against this Oregon team. I
mean, it's the death sentence against most teams.
Sure, but especially one this good.
Yeah, if you're making it easy on them, and I think you're right. I think that the thing that Notre Dame wasn't able to completely roll through USC is because while USC certainly gave up a lot of yardage, they didn't make it extremely easy on Notre Dame to find the end zone in one go.
Yeah.
The counter I would give to they held CJ Carr in check thing is that the weather looks like
a rain game.
It'll be significantly calmer in Oregon. The current forecast has a 12% chance of rain, which is just basically Oregon.
It looks like really good football weather.
Yeah, it does.
Chilly, not.
It's
awful.
not the kind of weather that you would expect to impact a game.
Yeah.
So, Dante Moore, the games that we can point to that he struggled in, again, weather seemed to be a factor in those. And USC can't necessarily count on the weather thing going on for this one. The other thing is, even if it wasn't the weather, I just think CJ Carr looked like he was off that day in the same way that Jaden Mayava looked like he was off against Nebraska. And I don't think it's... I am not super comfortable with the idea of praying for Dante Moore to just happen to be off.
Sure.
Somebody find out if he has a girlfriend and whether or not she can be convinced to break up with him this week.
We're going full Cody Kessler conspiracy theory?
Go full Cody Kessler on Dante Moore and
which I think has been debunked, by the way.
Yeah, but whatever. Something was off. Something was off. So I think it's not exactly the same. in the second half stuff from USC's perspective is they've just come against offenses that aren't Oregon's offense. And I think the Notre Dame one, Notre Dame is super valid because the points USC gave up in the second half, the really costly ones were, costly one was the special teams.
Yeah.
So, I think that was a more impressive second half performance. And I think the game that if you want to cling to any sort of hope, that's the second half defensive performance that you look at and say, it's not just that they were playing Nebraska and Dylan Raiola-less, Northwestern and a Dylan Raiola-less Nebraska, that they also managed to do that against Notre Dame.
Right.
And like that could be the thing. But again, I will preface everything with it's different when you're talking about doing that against Preston Stone and not Dylan Raiola. And I always forget the name of the quarterback from the previous week.
Mark Gronowski?
It's like it just out of my brain. Mark Gronowski.
The winningest quarterback in the history of college football.
But he's not Dante Moore. He's not Dante Moore. Like, let's be serious. I mean, I would even say that like CJ Carr has been very impressive this year, but I don't think he's Dante Moore either.
Sure.
He's a younger quarterback, has had less time to develop. And I'm not saying that Dante Moore is impervious. I think I would Jaden Mayaba and Dante Moore, put them head to head and decide who you want to take. And I don't think Mayaba necessarily loses that battle. So it's not that he's the best quarterback in the country or whatever, but I will say that he is the best quarterback that USC will face this year.
Sure.
And that is something that USC has to account for because it's just going to be harder to replicate the success of the second half success against the likes of a Dante Moore in good weather. And it's going to be even harder to limit the first half damage against somebody like Dante Moore, especially an Oregon team that can score quickly, because I mean, the saving grace against Iowa was they only had 4 possessions in the first half, where Oregon can just strike much more quickly. So,
yeah. And the reason I think that we mentioned the Notre Dame second half as sort of a proxy for what this could be against Oregon and what you would sort of point to as like a game in which you give up yards, you give up points, but you don't eliminate yourself from competing in that game. And the second half, I think, is key there, because in the second half against Notre Dame, SC gave up 4.4 yards per play, which is good. Notre Dame scored 20 points in the second half of that game. There was 3 touchdowns that they scored in that game in the second half. One of them was on a kick return that has nothing to do with defense. The other one was on a short field after the Mekhi Lemon fumble, which it was a 50 yards, if you want to call that. Is that a short field at midfield?
Yeah, it's a short field.
It's a shorter
That's good
field.
Starting position at the 50 is really a positive starting position. So,
and it was one long drive that they gave up, the 75-yard drive early in the third quarter. So, like, not perfect. But if that is the type of defensive performance you get over the entire game against Oregon, you give yourself a chance. And that's what you have to do when you go into a game where FEI is giving you a 21.5 win probability. You know what I mean? Like, you got to find a way to, you can't be perfect, but you need to be near there, right?
Well,
like you need to,
Well, what I said on TikTok was basically USC's defense needs to just find a way to not lose the game.
Yeah.
Like, you can give up yards, you can even give up points, but you just can't. You have to just be capable of getting the timely stop or the red zone turnover, or
holding them to a field goal if you can.
Holding them to a field goal. Yeah, it's just like do the little things. Don't give up the big, long plays and make it easy for them. And more than anything, it's just don't make it easy for Oregon. Make them work for everything that they get, and accept that they are going to get theirs to a certain degree. It's just, I said on TikTok, the closer USC's defense can keep this to 30 points for Oregon, the more they give USC a chance. And, the offense then needs to match them. Because, what did we say against Notre Dame? I said that USC's offense was going to need to score more than 30, and they didn't. But if they had, they win that game, even with, the what the defense did. That defensive performance was, all things considered, given what we know about this defense and where USC's at, an adequate defensive performance to put USC in range of a victory. And that's what effectively you have to repeat. You cannot repeat what happened against Illinois. You cannot let Oregon double up what Iowa did in the first half, because Oregon is capable. If you're having a weak first half, Oregon could drop 5 on you, and then, and then you're screwed. You can't let Oregon get 2 possessions ahead of you and be chasing them, because it's going to be pretty rough. So
yeah,
it's a tough matchup, but there are we can pin their hopes to, I guess. Oregon's primary receivers are basically all banged up. DeCorian Moore and Gary Bryant Jr. are both questionable with injuries. Evan Stewart, who's been injured all year, is maybe gonna be back, but also maybe not. He's just as questionable. So those guys are big weapons for Oregon, and if they're not available or if they're hobbled, then that's something that USC's defense at least gives them a little notch in their corner. But that doesn't mean that Oregon is going to be sort of dead in the water because they're missing those guys. Against Minnesota last week, without them, they basically just leaned on Kenyon Sadiq and Jeremiah McClellan, Malik Benson, and Jamari Johnson sort of shared the load there, and they dropped 40 something on Minnesota. So it's not the end of the world for them. Although it did get me thinking, Michael.
Sure.
Historically, certainly in the past few years, USC has had a hell of a time trying to stop tight ends. This year,
Alicia, are you tempting fate?
I'm probably jinxing it, but I was just trying to think, like, for the first time in a long time, we haven't really talked about anybody's tight ends. After, we haven't talked about how USC got destroyed by the tight end in these games, at least not that I can remember. So,
yeah.
That may literally just be the Eric Gentry factor, but who knows?
Don't tempt fate too much.
Fate.
Let's talk about Oregon's defense going up against the Trojans' offense. We have a little note in our rundown about PFF grades being really good. 12 players on Oregon's roster with 300 snaps are rated above a 65 compared to just 7 for the Trojans. And
they don't have any regular 300 snap guys sitting below 55 the way that USC does. So
yeah. A couple of big dudes to talk about. Tatum Tuioti on the defensive line at edge, really damn good. 47 tackles, 3rd on the team. 47 tackles from the edge spot is really damn good. PFF rating of 82.9, 5.5 sacks, 10.5 tackles for loss, which leads the Ducks. Bryce Betcher at linebacker, 81 tackles. He's an absolute tackle machine. Has almost double the next guy with tackles. He has an interception and 3 PBUs. And then a couple guys in the secondary to keep an eye on. Corner Brandon Finney Jr., 81.3 PFF grade. He's got 5 pass breakups this year and a pick. And Dylan Thinnerman, 81.9 PFF, 4 pass breakups as well with 1 interception. This is the defense that is really damn good in a bunch of areas. One of them is passing yards allowed, pass defense. Number 1 in the country, 127.3 yards per game that they're giving up. Indiana had 215. That's the most Oregon has allowed all season. That's with Fernando Mendoza. That's with, Indiana going into Eugene and getting a win at Autzen. SC has only been below 234 passing yards once all year, and that was Nebraska with 135. A Nebraska team who at the time had the number 1 pass defense in the country, and they look like it against SC. They completely shut down Mekhi Lemon and Jacoby Lane. They made SC throw to Chinook Hines a bunch, which is a very good thing if you're a USC opponent defensively. Not that Chinook Hines isn't good. He's a freshman. He's not in the phase of his career that Jacoby Lane and Makai Lemon are at.
I did a podcast with Hithlade from Addicted to Quack yesterday, and he dubbed USC's receiving targets as the Magnificent Four, which he said that basically if you allow USC to target these four players on offense, then you pretty much are screwed. And that's Makai Lemon, Jacoby Lane,
Chinook Hines,
and Walker Lyons.
Okay.
Because Lake McCree's efficiency numbers are not as effective, and Walker Lyons is just so good downfield. So, that's like he was very praising of Chinook Hines as a third option, even though USC doesn't usually have to go to him. Mm-hmm. But his point was basically like, if USC decides they're just going to target Chinook Hines, it feels like that's not necessarily. I mean, it's to Oregon's benefit because you're not throwing to Makai Lemon and Jacoby Lane, but it's not like a saving situation where like, oh yeah, Chinook Hines isn't going to be able to catch the ball and hurt you.
I think it depends, right? Like if SC can only throw to Chinook Hines, that's the only receiver they can throw to, and Jaden Mayava is rattled and looks like he did against Nebraska.
Yeah, that's a problem.
That's danger zone. If they can only throw to Chinook Hines, but they can have success and Mayava is feeling it, then you look at what, sort of SC did against Notre Dame, where Notre Dame with Leonard Moore at corner moving into the slot position to take away Makai Lemon. Yes, it gave SC opportunities to look at Hines and Jacoby Lane, but it did take the passing game a little bit off kilter. But Mayava looked good in that game, looked competitive, looked productive, certainly in comparison to how he looked in the Nebraska game, right? So, like, if you get the Mayava that played against Notre Dame, you're going to have a chance to win this game on offense if your defense keeps you in it enough, right? Like, that's going to be the hope there. But, yeah, the Oregon's been really good at passer rating, number 1 in the country against 94.3. They're number 3 in total defense, only allowing 235.4 yards per game. That's freakish. Long plays, 3rd in the country. They don't give up explosive plays. They're number 4 in first downs allowed, not allowing a lot of those. Scoring defense, allowing 13.7 points per game. Indiana is a team that will drop 70 on you. They scored 30 at Autzen, and that feels like a metric crap ton, right? Like, Oregon doesn't give up a lot of points. Rush defense only allowing 108.1 rushing yards per game. Again, I think if SC is limited to 127 through the air and a $108 on the ground, then the offense will be completely taken out of the game. They cannot afford Oregon's averages to be there. There are weaknesses. This is an Oregon team that doesn't make a lot of havoc plays, which I think is interesting. Like, this was something that we talked about with Nebraska too, that Nebraska didn't have a lot of havoc plays. They just get stops.
Which made their pass defense that much more impressive because I usually associate getting pressure on the quarterback with strong pass defense, and that's not what Nebraska was doing. That's certainly not what Oregon has been doing this year.
Yeah, and you look at the interceptions, they've gotten 9. It's 48th in the country, but they're 11th in pass defended. So at least getting their hands on balls, which are havoc plays that way. But 88th in sacks, 113th in tackles for loss, only getting 4.5 per game. 4th down defense, real bad for Oregon, 125th in the country. They're giving up almost 70% on 4th down.
I checked to see how many times, like if it was just a sample size situation, and no, they're sort of middle of the road in terms of how many 4th downs they faced.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I couldn't go any deeper on that to find out what the deal is there. If basically there's USC's 4th down defense last year. So I don't know.
Yeah. In the red zone, they haven't been great. 130th in the country in red zone defense. But this is the small sample size one. Only 18 trips into the red zone they've allowed, which is the second fewest in the nation. On those 18 trips, opponents have scored 13 times. Randy in the chat says, how many top passing teams has Oregon even played? Well, I think this is the question because, and it's not just passing team, but like great offenses has Oregon played because they played Indiana, a team that looks like an absolute world beater, but they played a Penn State team who we know what Penn State is right now, but like they sort of broke Penn State when they played them in September. It's hard to really gauge how good of a Penn State team that was when they played them. They did have Drew Aller, but Penn State only scored 17 points in that game, right? You look at the defenses, the offenses that they've played: Oregon State, Oklahoma State, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Northwestern, Iowa. These are teams that rank well beyond 50 in like every offensive category. Penn State and Rutgers are two of the best teams that they've played outside of Indiana offensively, and I don't think that those are two teams that are really like making your toes curl with what they can do in their offensive game this year. So they have not faced anyone outside of Indiana that has the offensive firepower that the Trojans do. So I think that is a concern if you're the Ducks. However, this is the exact same thing we said about Nebraska, and Nebraska completely held SC in check. Mayava had the worst game of his career and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so and this is the thing is that like Rutgers has a good passing offense. Indiana has a good passing offense. Those are good offenses. On the one hand, Oregon held Rutgers to 10 points, which is, I believe, their season low. And then Indiana managed to get 30 points on Oregon, which I think you could look at and say, well, if Indiana was able to score 30 on them, then they are vulnerable enough to give up those kinds of points.
Sure.
But we also have to remember, like, teams haven't really put a lid on Indiana this season, so
right.
Holding them to 30 points. I mean, once they got over that weird Old Dominion hump from the start of the season, the only teams that held them down were really Iowa and Oregon. And Iowa and Oregon have relatively elite defenses. So, USC isn't playing in the same sandbox as those teams in terms of defensively, but offensively, USC and Indiana are playing in the same sandbox. And I will say it now, like, I don't know that 30 points is enough to win, because I can tell you now USC's defense is not holding Oregon to 20 points the way that Indiana's defense was able to.
Yeah.
So I do think that there is certainly a question that can be asked about the level of opponent that Oregon's defense has faced so far this season. But I don't think it's a particularly like overwhelmingly compelling argument to say that they're not still a top 10 defense nationally.
Yeah. Just because they haven't faced those defenses doesn't mean that, those offenses doesn't mean that they can't still get the stuff.
Just what they did against Indiana is impressive. Holding Indiana to 215 passing yards. Again, that's not something most people have done.
Yeah. Yeah. SC's got to find a way. Got to find a way to move the ball on offense. And when we talk about the road struggles that SC has had under Lincoln Riley, and especially the last couple of seasons, like, so much of it is, can you make the play when you need it the most, right? And this is on offense and defense, but particularly on offense, the Notre Dame game, the defense was getting them stops in the second half, and the offense decided to fumble the ball away on a trick play. And then Jaden Mayava throws an interception in the rain, not his most egregious interception in the world, but like poorly timed. And then he throws the interception on the desperation drive at the end, right? Like, you have to have those three drives go your way at least half the time, 2/3 of the time. And if they do go your way 2/3 of the time, you're right there in the game, and maybe you win the game, right? Like, you've got to be able to make the plays. They made the plays against Nebraska when push came to shove on offense. They didn't get the salt away drive to go their way at the end of the Nebraska game, but they took the lead. Against Iowa, they turned the tide on offense, and were pretty dominant on offense at times in the second half. This is a receiving core that is absolutely, utterly elite when you've got Mekhi Lemon and Jacoby Lane making insane catch after insane catch. There's a lot of reasons to like SC's offense. There's a lot of reasons to think that this could be a team that puts up an offensive performance akin to 2011 SC going into Eugene and chucking the ball all over the place. SC is capable of doing that. Are they capable of doing that against this Oregon defense
on the road
consistently? Like the Illinois game, SC moved the ball at will against Illinois.
Yeah.
But they still had key drives where they shot themselves in the foot. Wayman Jordan fumbles. And
DJ, I think DJ...
There's the penalty that calls back the trick play. Mayava throws an interception. Yeah. He misses a wide open guy on third down. Like, those are the kind of things you can't make those mistakes in a close game, especially on the road.
Yeah, and this is my concern for USC, especially just it being on the road. USC has not played particularly clean on the road, on offense or defense. And on offense, it can be particularly costly because this team needs to win with offense.
Yeah.
And, you will have a hard enough time finding space to get by an Oregon defense as opposed to an Illinois defense.
Yeah.
Or whoever. If you are then shooting yourself in the foot on top of that, then you are in real trouble because you may be capable of putting up 35-40 on any defense in the country. Yeah. But if you also shoot yourself in the foot, then you won't do that. You have to play clean. And that's my biggest concern is USC doesn't really play clean on the road. If this game was at home, I would have different feelings.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. All right, let's get to over under, shall we?
So you're going over.
I'm going bold. Give me that over.
I got to take an under here. I got 3 unders to take. I'm going to do an under here.
All right, let's start with the first one. Over under 7.5. Oregon rushes of 10 plus yards. This is a run game. We talked about the three-headed monster, Whittington, Davison, Hill. They're so freaking good. All three of them basically the same dude. They had 13 rushes of 10 plus yards against Rutgers, 8 against Wisconsin, even though they struggled on offense at times in that game, particularly through the air. 7 against Iowa, but this is a USC defense that gave up 11 against Notre Dame. 7.5 is the number. This is the best run game that they will have faced on paper. Can they repeat the Notre Dame stuff and run for a whole bunch of 10-plus yard carries? Of course, it is worth noting, in Oregon's one loss, they had 1 against Indiana. Also worth noting, USC's defense, not Indiana's.
Yes. I am taking the over here, specifically because I see no reason to trust USC's run defense. I see no reason to trust USC's defensive line. I see no reason to trust USC's linebackers. It's just the reality. I'm sorry. Hitler asked me if there was anybody waiting in the wings, like that had been injured or whatever, that was going to come back and suddenly Superman it for the defense. And I was like, no, unfortunately, no. There is no magic bullet on the defensive line that's going to fix what is inadequate about the defensive line. So, it's over.
I am torn on this because I could say under because I think that Oregon could be really productive and be under and get like 6 or 5 or whatever it is and still have their production, especially when one of the areas that SC has succeeded in the second half of games is sort of limiting the huge plays. But for me, I think Oregon, of anybody, is look at Dan Lanning and how this dude's got a chip on her shoulder more than anyone. And you've got to be like that if you're an elite head coach. You've got to, use everything, his motivation. I think if you're Dan Lanning, you watch the Notre Dame game and you come out with like the thought of, we'll run the ball on every single down until you stop it. And I think if anything, that leans me towards the over. So give me the over, even though I don't completely feel confident in it, just because 7.5 is a lot.
It is, but again, I don't trust USC's run defense.
Yeah. Next one, 215.5 USC passing yards. This was the amount that Indiana had against the Ducks in their win in Eugene. SC averages 298.1 per game. The lowest that they've had this season was 135 against Nebraska, and they've only done that once. So 215.5 is the line. Where do you stand?
I'm going over here. I do think that it is very worth noting that USC is the best offense that Oregon will have faced this year, and USC is beyond that the best passing offense that that Oregon will have faced this year. USC has the best receivers that Oregon will have faced this year, and so I think that USC will put up the most passing yards and do the most passing damage on Oregon that they have allowed this year. Now, the question I have for USC, for Jaden Mayava, Makai Lemon, Jacoby Lane, etc., is how much over that season average, how much over that season high for Oregon can they get? Because if they're up above 300, then we're starting to have a different kind of discussion about USC's chances in this game. But if it's over and it's like 225, then yeah, I don't know that that's going to be enough.
I am going to take the over just because I think that this is a game in which SC is going to need to pass the ball, in part because they might be trailing. SC has been trailing in games lately. We know that they've gotten off to sort of slow starts. They've been better in the second half. Give me the over. Give me the over on that. 215 doesn't seem like that much, especially when you look at the Notre Dame game. They scored on a 60-yard touchdown pass to Jacoby Lane, right? Like SC has that ability to do that even in the tough games. Let's go to the third one. 9.5 Oregon points in the second half. Oregon is averaging 15.2 points in the second half, but SC is allowing 9.7. They've only allowed 3 touchdowns defensively in the second half in the last 5 games. And those 3 came against Michigan, the first of those 5 games, and Notre Dame, 2 of them. One of them on a short field in the second game of those. Have not allowed a touchdown the last 3 games in the second half. 9.5 is
Can I ask you a question? Because I said this over under. Is 9.5 too low?
No,
I went back and forth on this much.
I went back and forth about. I'm just gonna make my pick first, then, really quick, because I've gone back and forth about over or under here because if you set the line at 10.5,
it's very different.
I take the under. I sort of see Oregon scoring exactly 10 points in the second half. So I'm going to take the over. But only just.
I also am taking the over, but not because of the 10 points. I just can't see USC not allowing 2 touchdowns in the second half.
Okay.
That's just the reality. I think that USC's second half adjustments have been real. I'm not taking that away from USC. I just think it's harder to do second half adjustments and have them be as clamping down as USC against these other teams. It's just harder to clamp down that hard on a team like Oregon. Yeah. So I'm going with the over there.
The 2023 game, they scored 14.
Yeah, and it will frustrate the hell out of me if the scenario that none of us want to happen happens and Oregon's well ahead going into the second half and then they don't score anything because they don't need to.
You get the under, but not a feel good under.
Yeah.
Let's go to the next one, which is 4.5 Oregon tackles for loss. This is their average, but they rank 113th in the country in tackles for loss. SC had 6 negative plays against Notre Dame. Oregon has only forced 5+ twice at home this season. One of them was last week against Minnesota, and that was exactly 5. The other one was week 1 against Montana State of the FCS, which was 7. And mind you, that's a good FCS team, a damn good FCS team, but Oregon doesn't force a lot of negative plays. SC didn't have a lot of negative plays last week against Iowa either. 4.5 Oregon tackles for loss.
I'm going under here, and
Okay.
I have a very specific reason for doing so. Oregon, they aren't prolific in tackles for loss or sacks, but they average like 1.8 sacks per game. And one thing that Jaden Mayava has done very well is not take sacks.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I could imagine Oregon getting like 4 tackles for loss in the run game, but not getting any sacks, and so then getting the under here. Or Oregon getting like 3 tackles for loss and a sack, but I if I thought that the sack numbers were going to inflate this tackle for loss number, then I would go over. But
Sure.
I'm going with that narrow under because I think that Mayava has done a good job of not taking sacks.
Okay, I might find this the hardest line of the bunch
It's tough.
because I can make very good arguments either way. I'm going to take the over just because I don't think that, asking for Oregon to get 5 tackles for loss is that big of an ask. We know that SC had 6 against Notre Dame, and they were still productive in that game on offense, plenty. And so I'll take the over, only just. Which leads to over-under number 5. Over-under 76.5 Makai Lemon receiving yards. This was where he was against Notre Dame. 76 yards at Notre Dame. Leonard Moore did a fantastic job. He had 18 against Nebraska the week following. Part of that 76 is because he had one long, huge gain right before the fumble. So what say you? 76.5.
I'm going over just because Makai Lemon is good for, 1 or 2 of those plays per game.
Mm-hmm.
Even if he has a rough outing, I think that the chances are that he could have a very, he could have a very muted 80-yard performance in the same way
Sure.
that 76-yard performance against Notre Dame was muted. I also think that, I guess the question becomes, will it be a repeat of the Nebraska game? I don't want to jinx it or get overconfident in Jaden Mayava. I just can't imagine Mayava being as bad again as he was in that Nebraska game.
Yeah.
Which I think factored into, I think part of the difference between the Nebraska game and the Iowa game is that, he was throwing to Makai Lemon and Jacoby Lane and forcing them into really tough throws, but into really tough catches, but they were catches that were physically possible.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Where against Nebraska, it's like when he would miss so bad, like the receivers couldn't do anything at all with it. So, I think I expect them to be a bit more productive here.
I am going to take the under. I will say, if Makai Lemon gets the over here, I think SC's win probability goes way up. I'm taking the under. I expect this to be a Jacoby Lane game. I think Oregon is going to basically want to replicate everything that Notre Dame did. And I think that includes putting as many reps as they can on Makai Lemon. I do think he can be productive even under the 76.5. If he has 6 catches for 60 yards, he can still have a couple of touchdowns and be productive that way. I like Lane in this game. I like Tanook Hines. I like the tight ends in this game. I think a little bit more diversity in the passing game. I think it also helps that Oregon just doesn't give up a lot of passing yards in general, which might keep that number low. I think the quality of the Makai Lemon yards will be the more important thing than the number themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So that is something to keep an eye on. But last over-under to get to here is 3.5 USC red zone trips. Indiana and Iowa are the only teams this season to get inside of Oregon's 20-yard line more than twice this season. The Hoosiers did it 5 times. They scored 3 touchdowns. They had 2 field goals. Of course, that game on the road at Autzen Stadium in which the Hoosiers got a win. Iowa did it 3 times. They scored 2 touchdowns, including one of them late in the game on what would have been a game-winning touchdown drive. If not for the game-winning field goal at the end of the game for the Ducks. 6 teams have 6 Oregon opponents have failed to get into the red zone more than once. SC has had 3 red zone trips in every single game except Notre Dame, in which they had 3. They went 2 of 3 that game. Nebraska, they had 3, but they went 3 of 3, 2 touchdowns and a field goal. Alicia, 3.5 red zone trips. Where are you?
I'm going over here because I think that generally USC is able to move the ball on teams. Mm-hmm. The hiccups for USC come in capping drives with scores when they need them. So I think USC will move the ball on Oregon. The question for USC's offense will hinge on what they do when they get into the red zone. And, we established earlier that Oregon's red zone defense isn't that good. They haven't had a lot of teams get into the red zone for them, but when they have, they've generally been able to get touchdowns. It might be sort of like counterintuitive, but my worry with USC in the red zone is always less about what the opposing defense does and more like what USC does. The play calling. What does, is there a penalty? Is there just a phase that you don't get the PI on or, that kind of thing? So I'm going to go over. I do think that USC's red zone touchdown rate will be a critical number that we're looking at after the game, one way or the other.
I'm going to go under. I'm going to go under for 2 reasons. One, I think that I have this weird feeling that this is going to be a less scoring game.
Is it going to be like a 4 possessions in each half game?
I don't think it's going to be a rock fight per se, but I don't think this is probably going to be like a 45-42 shootouts, famous last words. But I'm taking the under because I think SC can score without being in the red zone. I go back to the Oregon game in 2012. SC scored on a bunch of long plays. 2011, they scored on a bunch of long touchdowns. Notre Dame this year, they scored on the long Jacoby Lane touchdown. I think they can score without being in the red zone. And it's just going to be one of those hard-fought games. It might be a game where SC gets down to the 22-yard line and has to kick from there. You know what I mean? So I'm going to take the under. Don't feel the greatest about it, but I'm going to take the under there. All right, we have one more bonus over-under. I say bonus because little inside baseball. When we do the over-unders, we look to see when people submitted their things. Ideally, we stop it. If anyone does one after kickoff, we'll take it out or whatever. I give grace there a lot, right? Like if you do one in the middle of the first quarter, we're gonna let it slide, right? But this over under comes from Big Rotbot, big fan of the pod, Julian. Can we call him a friend of the pod?
Yeah, friend of the pod.
Friend of a pod. He says over under 1.5 USC picks on College game day. And so the reason I say this is a bonus is because we'll put it in the form. It's in the form. You can go make the picks. It's a bonus point because if you make your picks at kickoff, you will have seen game day perhaps, and you will know the answer. So this is a bonus 1.5 USC picks on game day. When they make their picks at the end, will there be at least 2 people who said SC beats Oregon?
I'm taking the under. I don't think anyone will pick USC to beat Oregon, and I say that because generally those guys will look at numbers, stats, advanced statistics, and all of that kind of stuff, and you can't look at those things and pick USC. You just can't. I think if USC does get 1, it will be because somebody looks at Mekhi Lemon and says that dude's awesome, and that'll be the end of it. But no, I don't think more than 1 would pick. I
lean under as well. I think what hurts SC here is those game day picks are outright.
Yeah.
Like if it was spread picks, I think that's a completely different story. I think it's spread picks. I think SC has a bunch of spread picks because when we get into talking about what the line is right now, like the line, you absolutely can make the argument that it's too high. So yeah, I think that would be different, but I'm going to take the under on outright picks. How many people are making picks these days on game day?
It's like 5 or 6.
Yeah, I'm going to take the under. It's going to be, there'll be one, but there won't be two. So I'll take the under there. Let's get to our predictions. Vegas spread, which we mentioned just a second ago, 9.5 at the time of putting together our rundown. FEI projection has the Ducks by 12, 36-24. Alicia, what's your prediction?
I disagree with your statement that the spread is too big. I'm going with Oregon 40, USC 30. I think 10 points is reasonable considering that USC lost to Notre Dame by 10 points, even in a game that they were relatively competitive in. Mm-hmm. I'm just going to be straight up honest. I don't trust USC's defense. I don't trust the progression that we've seen from them over the past few weeks.
Pessimistic Alicia is out in full force.
I will not be surprised if Oregon comes out and, like you said with Lanning, that Oregon is the first team to realize that USC's run defense is abysmal and that you should maybe just run the ball over and over, like pull a Stanford and just run power every down and see if USC can stop it. And Dan Lanning's just crazy enough to do that, especially if he doesn't have his receivers. And I love USC's offense. I love Mailbag and I love Lane and Lemon and King Miller and all those guys. I really enjoy watching USC's offense, but I cannot deny that USC on the road simply plays 25% worse. They simply do. So I'm not going to pick USC in like a 40-something to 40-something shootout, which is the way that I imagine they'll have to win this game.
Yeah,
I think that we will see, like the Notre Dame game, the offense shoot themselves in the foot one too many times and end up falling behind. So yeah, 40-30. I got Oregon.
All right, 40-30. It's a good pick. I like that pick. As let me get my pen, my Corso. I like that pick.
Are we about to get a not so fast, my friend?
Maybe. We talk about reasons to pick SC, reasons to pick Oregon. I think the reasons to pick Oregon are very straightforward. They run the ball well, they run the ball really damn well, and they can run the ball down SC's throats. I think Dan Lanning has the energy of a Reddit shit poster in the best way possible, which I think what you want as a head coach. That's a compliment. He strikes me as the type of guy who will run the ball 94 straight times just to prove a point, to your point a second ago. And I think that doesn't bode well for SC here. You add in the fact that this is on the road, a place where SC has struggled mightily. Not along the run of play, but on those key moments where the game gets tight, your butt puckers, you got to make the play at the end, and SC just routinely has not made those plays. And so there were Rotbots in the chat earlier saying that, like, oh, Oregon doesn't win national championships, they choke in the big games and all this kind of stuff. You can say that until you're blue in the face. You also have to understand that it's not like SC doesn't do their share of those things.
Yeah. Especially
the last 2 decades when SC has not won in Eugene since 2011. Not a lot of attempts there. They've gone since 20. They've gone twice. 15.
It has not been often.
15 and 23. They've only gone twice. And so they haven't been there a lot. But like they haven't won there in a long time. They haven't won at Notre Dame in a long time. Not a lot of reasons to pick SC because of that.
Who was the last ranked team that USC beat on the road?
Was it Washington? Did we have this discussion?
I think it was Washington.
Yeah.
I think we had this discussion.
Yeah. And this game feels like the Washington game. In that, like,
straight down to the spread, because I was looking back at that. The spread on the Washington game was like 8.5 or 9.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I thought long and hard about making a no football reasons pick for the Trojans. I really did. I wanted to.
Just to cut you off real quick. Technically, it was UCLA in 2022, but also you could apply it to Oregon State in 2022.
Okay.
Sorry. Go.
I want to sit here and make a no football reasons and do the theatrics of all of it. I can't. And the reason I can't is because the biggest reason to pick against SC right now is they have not proven they can win this game on the road. The irony, though, is I think SC has proven that they can compete in this game, and SC has proven that they can be in this game, and SC has proven that they can sit here at the end of the game, we can sit in the CarCast, and maybe say that they should have, could have, may have won, whatever it is, because SC plays all of these road games extremely close. They are all games that will keep you up at night, and they were all games that will send you to the P and to our comment section and be furious, flooding the rant line with firing coaches and stuff like. Those are the type of games SC loses on the road. That's kind of what I think you have to assume that this is until proven otherwise. So this is an Oregon 31, SC 27 game. Close. There will be a pivotal play at some point in the game. I want to say SC makes that play. But until I'm proven otherwise that they will, I can't predict it. So, there you go. Oregon 31, SC 27. Trojans First in the chat says, SC won't get stopped. Oregon is too good. Next year we can beat Oregon. Randy says SC wins on a Sayeri walk-off field goal.
I'd take that. Give me that now.
That would be a big one.
Ryan Sayeri, Trojan legend, already working his way up there.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's get to the mailbag, shall we?
You've got mail.
All right. Let's before we do that, we got a comment in the chat from Fight on Natties. Michael, Alicia running late again. My wife says hi, by the way.
Hi, Fight on Natty's wife.
Hi, Fight on Natty's wife. Hola. All right, let's get to a voicemail we got from Eric.
Hey, guys, this is Eric from Salina, and I'm listening to the Fallout episode from the Iowa game. And Alicia, you addressed some of your comments talking about your attitude concerning USC versus a 6-6 mentality, like, okay, we've improved a little bit, and that's great. My question to you is, if Lincoln Riley's buyout was not a consideration, it was off the table, you could change coaches at will. Because we're 4 years in and USC is where it is, let's say regardless of what happens at Oregon, whether or not we make it to the playoffs, would you still look at replacing Lincoln Riley? And maybe that's not fair. I should say still. Would you consider replacing Lincoln Riley because USC is not where it needs to, where it should be? Would you consider replacing him, or would you say, it sucks that we're not where we want to be, but I think it's better to keep him and move forward than try to replace him? That's my question. Mostly for Alicia, but I'd love to hear Michael's thoughts too. You guys do great. Thank you.
Thanks for the call as always. Alicia, take it away.
Yeah, I think this is a really interesting question. I think circumstances would play a role in my feelings on this. If, let's say, USC loses to Oregon and loses to UCLA, if USC sort of fumbles the bag, as it were, going from the middle of November talking about the college football playoff to losing to your rival and closing out the season that way, I would seriously consider saying, screw it. We know this isn't the guy. Let's just move on. I would take the hit on the recruiting class, because I think that class is as much Chad Bowden's as anybody else, and I would be perfectly comfortable with Chad Bowden and Jen Cohen hiring somebody that they wanted. Now, if I were them, I would only make that change if I knew who I wanted and I knew that I could get them. So, like, if Bowen and Cohen decided that, Lane Kiffin is ready to be that guy. We believe in Lane Kiffin and Lane Kiffin's interested. Then I would just, cut loose and just go. Even if it wasn't Kiffin, it was one of the G5 guys. Like if Jen Cohen identified her next Kalen DeBoer and knew that they were out there and knew that she could get them, I would cut bait after 4 seasons at 8-4. At 9-3, if you put up a fight against Oregon, I think I would stick. Mostly because I don't believe that there is that obvious hire out there right now. I think that 9-3 is a perfectly acceptable outcome for this season. And at that point, now I'm factoring in, okay, 9-3 is fine. You lost the road games to ranked teams. We got to work on that. But, you've clearly made progress. And I would be interested in seeing year 3 with Danton Lynn and the another year with Bowden's roster building and the recruiting class that's coming in and all that kind of stuff. Like I would basically just almost like, kick the can down the road one more year because of the promise of what next year is. But, next year would be, I fear that if USC goes 9-3 this year and then goes next year and again goes 9-3, that we'll just be back to the conversation of like, oh, but they won 9 games. At which point I will be saying like, no, like the whole point of kicking the can down the road was that next year's team could be a legitimate winner, could be a legitimate contender for the for the college football playoff. If the progression is what it should be, right? So in that case, I would be looking at the 2026 season with a much stricter sense of what success looks like. Not like championship or bust, but certainly it should not be a question that USC can or can't go to the college football playoff when we're talking in November. USC would need to be in the position that like Ole Miss or A&M are right now, where it's like, well, they're in, So I guess the TLDR here is at 8-4, yes, I move on. Because if you lose to UCLA, I have nothing to say to you. Like, I just have nothing to say to you. I don't think USC is going to lose to UCLA, but that is a possibility that we have to account for. Yeah. At 9-3, I stick, see what 2026 looks like. At 10-2, I stick, and 2026, I still want to see what it looks like, but I might be more less like it's make or break depending on results.
Yeah, I think the answer to this is dependent on, so if we're taking out the buyout, what else are we taking out? Are we taking out the coaching carousel that's going to happen? Are we taking out the money for the new coach? Are we taking out everything else? Because, yeah, if you take out literally everything and all the hurdles, I think you can absolutely talk yourself into being the Chelsea Football Club of coaches and being like, well, it's not perfect, and so it's not perfect, so we're just gonna cut bait.
Yeah, but that doesn't count for the Chelsea, because the Chelsea thing was cut bait every year. No, but you're 4 years in. This is not cutting bait prematurely.
No, but we're talking about this year. So like we're talking about this year. I'm saying that like you can be ruthless. Yeah. You can be ruthless even at 9-3. You could be ruthless. You know what I mean? That's what I mean. But I think the answer is no. And the answer is no because 9-3 realistically is only fireable in very rare instances. And it's when you've gone 9-3 for several seasons. Mm-hmm. I don't think that Nebraska should have gotten rid of Bo Pelini. Bo Pelini should have gotten fired according to a lot of Nebraska fans because they had gone 9-3 forever. SC's not in a position where they've gone 9-3 forever. And so you can't make a decision that way. But the real big reason here is the coaching carousel. There's too many good jobs open and there's not enough good coaches. If you were going to go out, to your point, and promise me that you're getting Lane Kiffin, if you're going to promise me that you're going to find a way to, I guess, get Cignetti or something like that, like you're going to promise me that you're definitely getting John Harbaugh, that's a different story. Yeah, like that's a different story.
Yeah.
But that reality doesn't work in practice. So, like, no, the answer is no. The answer is no. They're especially with how they've played in the second half of the year. They've taken a lot of step forwards to fix a lot of the issues. There's still a long, outstanding task list. They haven't moved everything from the icebox to the in progress to the QA to the done in the JIRA category stuff. but like in their the Trello board. But they've gotten some of the like a good chunk of those done, and we talked about this season. Like the key was, don't lose the games you're not supposed to lose to, like don't throw away games or anything. Like they haven't done that. They've even if they lose to Oregon, they will have lost 3 games in which 90% of teams, 95% of teams will have lost those 3 games too. So, all right. Chat from Randy, do you think Riley takes the wraps off of Mayava and runs him more this game than we've seen this year? Is it a Nebraska game?
I would hope so. I hope that him running the ball is part of the game plan. I thought it was very effective against Iowa. I think it needs to be part of the game plan every week. I do not expect ever for Mayava to be, running 6, 7, 8 times. But I would like to see him run closer to a handful.
Yeah, I could see a world where they absolutely the full bag of tricks is there, which is maybe a bad thing. You don't want the full bag of tricks like we saw against Notre Dame. But no, I think that we'll see him run at least a fair bit in this game. Got an email from Alex. Hey, Alicia and Michael. After a few episodes of pessimistic Alicia Gate, just want to throw in my 2 cents and maybe ask, are we all reacting to just different things? We're just getting wires crossed in each instance. What I mean is I'm treating USC's rebuild like my favorite team's rebuild, Chelsea FC. Most of each fan base wants to be both back on top immediately, while more realistic fans are judging the journey. I think USC, like Chelsea, have met the realistic benchmarks of their current journey. While neither is on top of the league, it's undeniable to me that both are heading in the right direction, which I think is worth being happy and celebrating, for the simple fact that some of this has to be fun for the fans too. And I have no issue with Alicia keeping an eye on the macro and making sure we remember the ultimate goal. The only thing I wanted to push back on her was her school example. That USC got D's or C's, that we shouldn't celebrate it because you're capable of A's. I think we should look more about this like USC suffered a compound leg fracture and they're rehabilitating themselves. We're not celebrating the C as it's celebrating that we can run and jump again. And people no longer laugh at us when we challenge them to a race because we have Clay Helton braces on our legs. And in this scenario, we know USC can make a full recovery, and it finally feels like we've got the right physical therapist. As for Oregon, no one in their right mind should believe USC is going to win. Oregon is fully armed and operational. However, we are past the point of no one in their right mind believing that USC could win. And that gap closing shouldn't be sneezed at either. Anyway, to keep a dissertation email short, SC against Oregon parallels Chelsea against Liverpool. Hopefully USC keeps it close so an 18-year-old can win it at the end.
I think Chelsea wins in a landslide.
Mm-hmm. Appreciate everything you do. Former Studs and Duds guru, Alex. We appreciate you, Alex. P.S. I have a couple spots open on my Pro Clubs team. Husband and wife center back pairing. Just kidding, unless. Eyeballs emoji.
We've totally talked about. We've talked every
about,
season about like, should we do Pro Clubs?
Yeah,
yeah.
We stick to Rush usually.
Yeah,
but like I would be interested in clubs for sure.
Yeah.
I'm the asshole that just wants to play up top though. That's my problem. At least
I'm the defender. Defense. I in Rush I sit back and I clean everything up.
Yeah. But I think Alex sort of nails all of this. I think it's all like spot on. Like both of these things can be true, right?
I have a counter.
Sure.
I have a counter. Okay. USC had a compound fracture 4 years ago. And
Here
USC
we go with
is
the year
still
4.
using
All right.
this as an excuse for why they can't participate in PE.
Sure.
That's what's going on. I am the PE coach rolling my eyes when the kid who had a compound leg fracture 4 years ago comes up and says, I can't run the mile because I broke my leg. You broke your leg 4 years ago. Why weren't you doing physical therapy 3 years ago? Like, What is going on here? What is that's where I'm at. I think that I would say in year 3, USC was already beyond the point where they could argue that Clay Helton had anything to do with the outcome of that season.
Yeah.
I'm not interested in it being part of this conversation in 2025 either. Like it's been long enough that we need to start putting the letting the buck stop at Lincoln Riley, whose mistakes, by the way, are the ones that were causing people to say, well, it's actually year 2. Well, whose mistake was it to cause it to be year 2?
Yeah.
There is just this weird, like, wanting to give a pass. And I'm not even saying you need to be out on Clay Helton. I mean, on Lincoln Riley to do this. Like, certainly not in the way I am, where I am quite certain, and I don't want to be, but I'm quite certain that that he's not the guy. But you don't have to be certain that he's not the guy, while also acknowledging that he has screwed up this rebuild by getting the defensive coordinator wrong, by getting the transfer stuff wrong. And like Johnny in the chat says, 4 years, I don't think fans know how far behind USC was. I think fans overinflate how far behind USC was. The 3 years before Clay Helton got fired, USC had upped their investment in the program, upped their investment in the support staff, upped their investment in practically everything in a bid to see if they could get Clay Helton to get going. Clay Helton had one bad recruiting class. He had one bad recruiting class. The recruiting classes before that were all at least as good as the recruiting classes that Lincoln Riley has been bringing in. And USC is a program with inherent advantages that most teams in college football don't have. And I get that USC wasn't spending NIL at the degree that like Ohio State has been, but let's stop acting like USC was like the sisters of the poor. USC NIL spending was still greater than probably 90% of college football. So like, I think that USC fans want to have their cake and eat it too. They want to act like USC is this prestigious program, one of the best jobs in the country, capable of winning at the highest levels because we have pride in what USC's history is and what a powerful school USC is, while also acting like USC is some poor disadvantaged orphan who was, abandoned on the street, and we should not expect them to know how to read by this point. Like I feel like I am on a different page than a lot of USC fans about where the program was at the end of the Clay Helton era. I'm not saying it was in a good spot in the end of the Clay Helton era, but after 1 year, Lincoln Riley flipped that roster. The roster that was in year 2 of Lincoln Riley was the vast majority of players were handpicked by Lincoln Riley and his staff, because anybody who wasn't welcome on that roster was gone. And USC brought in tons of transfers and tons of new recruits. So by year 3, again, everyone on that roster is doubly handpicked by Lincoln Riley and his staff. So again, like if we're talking about, Helton left USC in such a bind, well, what Helton players were on that roster weighing that roster down? They were all Riley players. So I'm not going to act like it's not Riley's fault that the roster was in the state it was in 2023. Why was the 2024 quarterback situation what it was? Because Riley didn't get the quarterback evaluation correct and didn't have a backup plan. Why was USC defaulting to 6-6? Because Lincoln Riley's team couldn't win games that USC had a talent advantage in. You can't tell me that Washington had a better roster than USC, or that Maryland had a better roster than USC, or that Minnesota had a better roster than USC. USC lost those games because they were... The team was what they was, and they were incapable of finishing off games. That is a reflection of your head coach. That's not those players didn't learn how to not win football games from Clay Helton, because in 2022 they won 11 games. It's just I just think it's so overinflated, this idea that like, Riley inherited a dumpster fire. Riley inherited a place that hadn't been cleaned in a year, but all it took was one weekend to, scrub the floors, and it should have been fine.
I think that, like,
the roof wasn't caving in.
There's multiple levels to the question here. Like, in the sense of, like, was SC completely behind the eight ball in terms of being Ohio State overnight, being Alabama overnight? Yes, and that was going to take years.
Yeah.
Was SC behind the eight ball from competing to going to the playoff and all those things overnight? No, and we know this because SC was a 2-point conversion against Utah away from going to the playoff in year one. You know what I mean? Like, you stop that 2-point conversion, SC goes 12-0 in the regular season. It wouldn't have mattered if they would have lost the Pac-12 championship game in which Caleb Williams gets hurt. We know this because TCU lost their championship game that same season, the following day, and they still went to the playoff. So SC was a 2-point conversion stop away from going to the playoff in year one. Like, those are different things. Like, if the goalpost is strictly being the Pete Carroll dominant SC team, or the current Ohio State iteration, or the peak of the Dabo Clemson era, like, if that's where the goalpost is, then yes, SC was always years away from that.
Yes.
But, like, that is a ridiculous place for the goalpost to be. You know what I mean?
For me, the goalpost is between 5 and 10. It's where the Texas Techs and the Ole Misses and the the BYUs and Utahs are sort of sniffing around. And USC hasn't been there since 2022. Yeah. That's why this is why I'm so critical, because I'm not saying USC should be a top. I don't think that USC has had the sustained success that they would need to compete with teams like Ohio State. What Kurt Cignetti is doing at Indiana is absolutely insane, and I'm not sure how he's doing it. But I accept that that is an outlier in general. But you're not going to match up physically with Georgia, who has been recruiting the trenches like mad for the last decade. But you can certainly compete with Ole Miss.
Yeah, I think that the
an Ole Miss team who, by the way, is starting a former walk-on this year because their starter got injured. And you can't tell me Ole Miss has more resources than USC does.
Yeah, no, I get you. These are different things. I don't think there's anything. SC's talent is not the reason why they haven't gone to the playoff. SC's lack of elite talent is the reason why they haven't won a national championship.
Right, so Johnny says USC has not put in the same money as A&M, Georgia, OSU, and Texas. Yeah, I'm not talking about competing with A&M, Georgia, OSU, and Texas. Again, I'm talking about competing with Ole Miss and Texas Tech and BYU. And Notre Dame.
I think you need to clarify when you say that. Obviously,
again, I'm talking about the 5 to 10 window is where USC should be by now, not 1 to 5,
right?
5 to 10.
Yes, but I'm just saying that people can clip that and say that you don't think that they should be competing against Georgia and Texas and Ohio State.
No, because Georgia,
that's not what you're saying.
No, what I'm saying is Georgia. The second half of this 10-year contract is when you should be setting up to compete with those teams. Yes, My problem is that because you reset after year 2, suddenly you've already pushed things back. So now, when are you expecting to go compete with those guys?
Yeah. Well, we talked about having a hard stop a half hour ago.
Yeah,
so
I know.
We got to move it. Email from Bob. Based on the talent alone, I am not sure Oregon still has better talent than SC. Better defense, yes, but does that mean better talent? SC is in the top 10 recruiting class every year, and 2026 is number 1. Why doesn't all that talent and high NFL draft picks translate to being a perennial playoff team like Georgia, Ohio State, Oregon, Bama, etc.? How is that just about 3 or 4 years? In this case, it is the head coach to whom it is given much as expected. Are there 5 teams in college football with more talent than USC? I don't think so. Certainly not the skill positions. Yeah, this is the point where, I think that Alicia and I agree on. There is talent-wise, there is nothing stopping SC from being a playoff team. They have not been a perennial playoff team because of their lack of ability to make the key plays at the end of games and all that stuff. They talent-wise, they have the talent that Texas Tech has, and they have the talent that all the SMU had gotten to the playoff. If SMU can get in the playoff, SC can.
Yeah, and I just want to point out, like, did Lincoln Riley inherit a bigger dumpster fire than Lane Kiffin inherited at Ole Miss coming out of the Matt Luke era, where he went 6-6, 5-7, 4-8? Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss, a very difficult place to win, by the way, historically, goes 5-5 in his first season, and since then, he has, in 3 of the 4 seasons since, he has won 10 games. His worst season since that first turnaround season was an 8-5 season.
So again, dead horse here.
I'm beating the dead horse, but like this is my point.
Yeah. All right. Email from Brian. So I went back to watch that strip sack. Refs called number 15 holding on us. Weird that number 15 didn't even play that game. Richardson was in on a defensive play. I don't think Anthony Beavers was in that play. I didn't see anyone holding that had a number close to that. Alicia, I think this is talking about the G-Day Abasiri.
The strip sack. Okay, here's my read on it, and this is something I went looking for. Yes, Anthony Beavers was not on the field. Initially, I thought that maybe it was Bishop Fitzgerald getting confused for, with the team numbers 15 and 9. But Bishop Fitzgerald is nowhere near a receiver on that play, so it couldn't have been him. The problem is that we don't see what's happening further down the field, and according to people who were at the game, granted Iowa fans, but I did see a couple people on Twitter mention that at the game, they could see that Christian Pierce had pulled back a receiver who was running downfield. Now, was it impactful to the play in the same way that the illegal man downfield stuff drives us crazy? No, but that seems to be the explanation. It was a safety holding a receiver who was getting downfield. But we can't see that in the broadcast, so I can't say that for sure that it's there.
Yeah, and the number thing is something that happens as a mistake all the time. Yeah. All right, we'll be back Saturday with a watch along at game time 12:30. Join us on YouTube for that, and then the CarCast following that as well. All right, we will see you then. Be sure to click the link in the show notes, in the description, in the doobly-doo, and go make your over-under picks, including the bonus. Big thanks to Julian for adding that one in there as well. So, final word. Grumpy?
The final word is pozole, as in we need to get going so that we can go have dinner with my parents because my mother made pozole.
I'm making a face.
Oh, yeah.
Not because it's your mom's pozole. It's just that it's pozole.
My guess is she might have beans, so you might be able to just have beans.
All right, plate of beans. All right. Until next time, we'll see you.
See ya.
See ya.